Okay, with having 6 kids, people make a lot of assumptions that I just have the sleep down. Like there has to be a rhythm, a flow, a method that we use to get all our kids to sleep, because how on earth can you survive with 6 kids if they're not sleeping well? And the truth is, I have no secret answer for you. I have no method. It is complete chaos here, but it's our chaos and we love it. So let me break down what sleeping looks like in our house, because I never did sleep train, and how it works for us. So let's start when I was a first-time mom. The sleep deprivation hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, you know you're not going to sleep, but if you've never experienced it before, it's just a whole other level. And on top of that, my birth was a little hard. You know, I was in labor for a long time. It was my first time giving birth, so I was recovering from that and processing that because I really was not prepared for what birth and postpartum look like. And so I did not have a lot of energy. But for me, I never wanted my newborn baby to be crying. Even if you do sleep training, they actually don't encourage you to do these kinds of sleep training until they're a little bit older. So from my research, what I learned, it's like those first 4 to 6 weeks, like you do what you need to do to survive, but there really shouldn't be like sleep training. I could be wrong with this. I think the max is like create systems and routines. But again, that first 4 to 6 weeks of life, like there's only so much the baby is able to even understand at that point. But man, I was so tired and trying to recover. And I was trying to recover from giving birth. On top of that, I was trying to establish breastfeeding. And so I was breastfeeding around the clock. And there was only so much my husband can do. He'd be really supportive where I would breastfeed and then he would take the baby, swallow the baby, change the baby's diaper, walk around with the baby so I could catch up on some sleep. But again, you're trying to establish that. And it was my first time. And so I just felt like I was getting 0 sleep. And they really scare you. They really scare you. And I guess it's for good reason, because it's not as if these things are unfounded, but they're like, do not bring baby in the bed with you whatsoever. Do not fall asleep with baby on the chair, the couch, whatsoever, which I totally get. I have heard horrific stories. I mean, trigger warning, just so you guys know, we're going to talk about a little bit about infant loss, but you know, you hear these stories where parents were so sleep deprived, baby falls asleep on them on their chest, they roll, and they get stuck in between the couch cushions, and it's horrific, and they can't breathe. So there's this huge risk of suffocation. So they really, really scare you. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to bring baby to bed, and I don't want to fall asleep in the chair. But at the same time, I'm so sleep deprived. I don't really have any methods to get this baby to self-soothe and put them in the crib and put them in a safe spot to sleep. They're not sleeping. They're crying. I'm not sleeping. And so what's going to happen is I'm probably going to fall asleep in a chair, not realizing it. Same with my husband. You know, despite both of us working hard, we're both losing sleep over this. So what do you do? What do you do? You're putting baby in a safe spot, but they're not having it. They're just up screaming and crying and crying. So I just was at such a loss. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to put my baby in any danger. I didn't want to be the one to put them in any risky situation. But here I was walking around with the baby. Here my husband's walking around and we're falling asleep standing up like we could drop the baby. You know, we're on the chair and I'm breastfeeding and I'm falling asleep. And it's like, how do I do this safely? How do I survive safely? How did they do it before? And of course there's arguments. Well, there was more of a village. People would take turns with the baby while mom slept. Okay. But I don't have that. So what do we do? And honestly, okay, so then this is going to be controversial. I'm not telling anyone on what to do, by the way. I'm not giving any recommendations on what to do. I'm just sharing what I did. I ended up co-sleeping because I didn't know what else the hell to do. So what I did was I researched safe ways to co-sleep, essentially. And some people may argue there's no such thing, but I don't know. What did our ancestors do? And I'm talking way back, right? Before cribs, before a safe space to sleep. They probably slept with their kin like every other mammal. Now, of course, it's like, yeah, they might sleep with their kin, but then, you know, horrible things happen. Sure. But to me, when he just be in that nook of my arms, it just felt like the most natural thing in the world to me. And it was the only way we got sleep. So right away, I started doing, I think it's like Safe Sleep 7. I forgot what it's called, but it's like basically these 7 rules to follow if you're going to be sharing a bed with your baby. And one of them being they don't want them to be premature, right? That totally makes sense. I think another one is breastfed babies. And I don't know what that has to do, why breastfeeding or not. I would assume it has something to do with hormones, baby being able to like smell the breast, like everything like that. They specifically say breastfeeding babies. I'm not sure on that one. Definitely do your research on that, but I'm sure that has something to do with some hormones involved with that. But yeah, a firm mattress. So that's the thing. I don't have a Tempur-Pedic mattress. Like we have a very firm mattress, and there's all these other methods. It's like, you know, no pillows, no sheets, none of this like suffocation risk for it. So once I learned that, and you sleep in a very specific position, like they're in the crook of your arm. I don't wear loose clothing to bed, anything like that. Once we did that, I finally got some sleep. But here's the thing, when it comes to co-sleeping, you'll hear people like, don't do it. There's so many risks involved for suffocation, stuff like this. But then what happens? You end up falling asleep in the chair. You have a baby who won't be put down on their bassinet. You have a baby who won't be put down in their crib. You have a baby who wakes up the second you put them down. And you feel like there's no methods of self-soothing you can do. So what happens? You end up pulling the baby, you're walking around, And then you're going to find yourself in an unsafe sleeping position with the baby. So how I viewed it was like, I'm going to educate myself as much as I can, be aware of all the risks, like inform myself of the risk, and then make a decision from there. Because at some point you have to figure out how to survive, how to do this. So once I got there with my first baby, second baby, day home from the hospital, like in the crook of my arm in the bed, and I actually got some sleep. Now I know there's parents who have lost, and oh my gosh, does my heart go out to them and stuff. So again, there are risks. There's risk putting your baby in the car. I mean, there's risk with everything. So I think what it comes down to is you have to educate yourself, know what the risks are. Why is the American Pediatrics recommending not to co-sleep? Which again, I think they're starting to change their stance. Not gonna lie, research that though. But that's what it comes down to, because there are risks involved with anything you do in life. So how I look at it when it comes to co-sleeping is I think you should heavily research ways to do it safely. Research the risks. Like, why are pediatricians not recommending co-sleeping? Like, what brought them to this conclusion? And I think it's important. I think it's important to educate yourself in the best way. And then at that point, you need to make the decision as the parent on what's best and evaluate the risk and the benefits and all these other things. And that's just what you're going to be doing as a parent in general, in terms of raising your child and bringing them up and making sure they're safe. So that's how we dealt with sleeping and the baby stage. So then, I learned some tips from taking care of babies. I have not followed her program. I honestly just had a hard time finding time to learn these things, to be honest. I was so sleep deprived, and I think when I could try to do anything, I wasn't learning about sleep, because I found kind of what worked with us. But I did learn a few things, and there was one thing that was like such an eye-opening to me was like, oh gosh, I already forgot the name of it, but there's like active sleep, essentially, where babies will be grunting and making all these noises and moving, but their eyes are closed and they're just moving when they're sleeping. But man, my babies had some crazy active sleep. So when I would see them doing this, I'd pick them up and I'd be like, okay, this is good because they're still sleepy and I can get them back to sleep. Whereas if I wait and they're doing this whole active sleep, but then they pop open their eyes, it's gonna be so much harder for me to get them back to sleep. So in my mind, I was like, no, I need to tend to them right when they make noise so I can get them to stay asleep longer. I didn't realize that they were full on, like, may even being like a deep sleep at that point, and they were just being loud. So that was something I learned, and that helped me. And so I didn't just jump the second my baby made noise. I kind of was able to assess, like, is this active sleep? Are they waking up? She also has really great ideas for creating a schedule with wake windows and stuff. And that kind of worked too. I just followed eat, play, sleep. So they wake up, they eat, we play, and then I get them to sleep. And that works, but sometimes I would have to nurse them to sleep. And then as I got more kids, and I couldn't necessarily like follow a rhythm so much because there was a lot of kids. And if you guys know me, you know that I had 6 kids. My oldest is only 9 now. My youngest is 1. When I found out I was pregnant with number 6, my oldest was like, how old? He must have been 8. Yeah, he must have been 8. So that was like 6. Yeah. Or he was 7. Anyways, let me tell you right now, when number 6 was born, I had 4 and under. I had 3 and under. So my now preschooler, he wasn't even 3 yet when she was born. And then I had 2 and under. So let me tell you, I know a thing or two about losing sleep and being in that foggy haze. So it was really difficult for me to stick with the schedule. So by the time more kids came along, I ended up just nursing for comfort. Well, I've always nursed for comfort. I meant nursing to sleep. You know, sometimes they say, oh no, don't let them to be dependent on the boob to go to sleep. And I'm like, you know what? Why not? It's like a superpower. I can just plop them on, they fall asleep. Like, why would I not do that? I need the baby to sleep. And so, to me, that just makes the most sense. Like, if they fall asleep the second they go on the boob and I need them to go to sleep, like, why would I not do that? Why would I not use my superpower? And they'll say, oh, they become dependent on it to go to bed. But I don't know. At some point, I guess for me, when it comes to that newborn stage and baby stage, because of just the life I have and the amount of kids I have, I just have to tackle each thing as they come, essentially. Now, I will say with my first, we ended up developing a routine just naturally, right? It was like dinner time, bath, brush teeth, story time, bed. And so once I had the first and we kind of had a little bit of structure, when the second baby came along, yeah, that kind of all went out the window, but we were able to kind of fall back into it once we got through that newborn stage. And so with each subsequent kid, it's like they just kind of fall into the natural rhythm that we've placed, like, which isn't very structured at all, but there is a natural rhythm to our night. And it's just like adults, like the human body needs nighttime routine, and it signals to our brain like it's time for night, because we live in a modern society with artificial lighting and all this stuff. And so our nighttime routine, I think that's what, I'm not like a neuroscience or anything, but neuroscience, like obviously don't know all the science behind this, but from what I have heard, it's that a lot of our routines at night will signal to our brain it's time for sleep. So while our routine may not be as structured and may start later some nights, we do have a routine nonetheless. And with each kid, they just kind of fall into the routine that already exists. So in terms of sleep training, no, like I tried with the first, I tried doing different methods and I couldn't take him crying. I just couldn't take it. And you know what? Here's the thing. Some people may argue like, yeah, it's like a few days of crying here, but then like, they have passed the hump and it's just so great. And it's a sacrifice. And you guys know I'm all about making sacrifices for the greater good, right? Like, pregnancy, like a lot of my pregnancies really are hard on me. And I still, here I am with 6 kids, but to me, I'm like, well, it's worth it. That sacrifice is so worth it to bring this child into the world. So, I'm not against going outside your comfort zone to, do something that will help you further down the road. But for me, it wasn't clicking with me in terms of letting them cry more. So that just wasn't for me. I don't have judgments. You know your baby's best. You know your family dynamics best. So how you do it is how you do. This is how I do. Now, with my first few, there were nights that were just really hard and I still have hard nights, but I think I'm able to just have such a perspective now because I've just done this so many times. And now I can see that it's truly just a season. Like this is not your new normal. I mean, it's my new normal because I have a baby almost every year. But for you, it might be a little different. But it truly is just a season because like now I look at my oldest is 9, right? I have a 9 and an 8-year-old and I spend time with them every night because we want to, like, we read books, we talk, we have a lot of discussions, but then I, give them kisses on the head and I'm like, hey, good night. I love you guys so much. And then we just close the door and they'll do it, they'll read or whatever, but they go to bed. But some nights they'll still be like, can you lay down with me? And I'm like, oh gosh, of course, because there's going to come a night where they're not going to ask that. So I take it every chance I can. But even my 5-year-old, now I will say Tim and I, a big thing we do at night is we do one-on-ones with each kid. That's their time and where that's their safe space. So we make sure we have that. But if they don't fall asleep after that one-on-one time, we can be like, okay, good night, kiss them and close the door and go. So, and the same, honestly, for my 3-year-old, he can kind of do that something. We lay with our 3-year-old quite a bit, but I'm just saying like there comes a point in time where you will be able to do that. And I know that seems far away. Like you're like, oh my gosh, 4 or 5 years old. That could seem really far away if you're in the thick of it with postpartum. But now that I'm here with a 9-year-old, I'm like, oh my gosh, like those first 5 years just flew by. Like, and now he's sleeping on his arms, like, and so it's hard to have that perspective, especially if it's your first time. Especially if you're not through that stage yet, like especially even if you have 2, but you have 2 under 2, like you don't know. This is the only life right now, right? So, but as someone who has experience, someone who has a lot of kids, who's been down this road so many times, can tell you it truly is just a season. And when your kids get older, this sleep deprivation time is actually so small. I know it doesn't feel small, but it is so small in the grand scheme of life. Now, here's the thing though. Moms need to take care of themselves too. Dads need to take care of themselves too. And so I can't just sit here and be like, oh, don't worry about it. Like you'll get over the sleep deprivation. Just like, hunker down and buckle up and go without sleep for the next few years. No, that's not what I'm saying. Not what I'm saying at all. 1, I'm just trying to be encouraging a little bit, but 2, I don't really have practical advice on how to get through the sleep deprivation because I have just found it's different for every family. And for me, how we got through it was co-sleeping. We have the babies in the bed with us. And I know that gets always the question, how do you keep making more babies if your babies are in the bed with you? I'm just going to answer it. Okay. So let's just get that one out of the way. 1, there's lots of other places to do that. 2, I will say, as they got older, I was able to put them down in their crib for at least like 30 minutes. Like they would sleep in their crib or their bassinet for like 30 minutes. Good. So there are times, most nights, where the kids are all in their own beds, in their rooms. Like a good, sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's an hour. So that's when mom and dad get to have a little fun. Look, I know that may be TMI, but it's like a big question people always have. And they're like, how am I going to do this? I don't mind my baby sleeping with me, but I don't want it to affect the intimacy with my husband. Like I'm telling you, you figure it out. I will say though, because we homeschool, our mornings aren't very rushed. So we do have more of this flexibility at night too. So again, when it comes to sleep training, when it comes to what works for your family in terms of sleep, it's gonna be different for each family because you all have different routines and, different responsibilities. But basically, Tim and I just embrace it. And I think what got me to embrace it more was talking to our brother-in-law, so Tim's sister's husband. And he had 2 older kids from his previous marriage, and they were teenagers on the cusp of adulthood. At the same time, he had a baby. And I remember talking to him, being like, I'm just so sleep deprived. And like, you're not supposed to bring him in the bed. And, I'm telling him all this stuff. And he goes, oh, what I do to have my girls little again. Like, he's like, honestly, it just goes by so fast. And in a blink of the eye, they're teenagers. They're, off on their own. They're doing all these things. And basically he was like, just let them in your bed. Just cuddle with them if that's what you feel called to do with your babies, because that time is about this much in the grand scheme of things. And it's a very short but special time. So he's like, just embrace it. And so and he took that attitude with his baby girls when he had two more babies. And it just really influenced me. He was so genuine and vulnerable about that. And that's what made me be like, you know what? Yeah. Like, I don't know what the baby books are saying, but I'm going to really listen to my intuition when it comes to this one. Now, that's another thing. I love being a mom in this day and age because I can find an answer to anything. Like, if I have a question about anything, like if their boogers look weird, like, what does that mean? I mean, it's like, okay, cool. Like, I have the answers at my fingertips, but it's a little over information that can be pretty overwhelming sometimes. And it gets to the point where you have so much noise that you can't block it out and listen to your God-given mother's intuition. I mean that there's truly a God-given mother's intuition. And I'm not saying ignore all your doctors, ignore the people. I'm not telling you to ignore anyone. But what I am saying is that we have more than just people we trust in our lives telling us what to do with our babies. And so in this world of over information, it can be very easy to get caught up in the noise. So one of the biggest things I say on all my channels is block out the noise. Block out the noise. What is best for your family? What is best for you and your baby? I know some people look at, okay, now I vlog our nighttime routine, meaning I will show you like what it looks like putting 6 kids to bed. And some people freak out when they see the time. It's like 10 p.m. Sometimes it's like 11 p.m. But I will say again, we don't have school early in the morning. We homeschool, so they're still getting their full hours of sleep that they need. It's just a little later. And that's just kind of what works for our family. And, people are like, how are you going to prepare them for the real world when they have to go get a real job? Like, they're 9. My oldest is 9. We got some time to prepare him and adjust his schedule a little bit. I think that's another thing you guys want to keep in mind. They go, oh, what about the real world? And how are you going to prepare them for the real world? I'm going to prepare them in little steps that are age appropriate. But for now, I want to let them be kids and snuggle with mom and dad. And if that's what they want to do, because we have lots of time to prepare them for the real world. And we have lots of ways to do it in incremental steps and not just like, hey, you know what? Get ready, but kid. But you know what? Hey, like, I'm not that experienced of a mom, given my oldest is only 9. So, take what I say with a grain of salt. This is just how we're doing it. And our family, for the ages we have, this is what's worked for us. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm definitely tired. So you may be wondering how I have a lot of energy, how I'm able to do this if I'm not getting much sleep. The truth is I get sleep just in different ways. So my husband, a lot of times we do not go to bed together at the exact same time. He'll go to bed earlier than me. I stay up a little later, and then he wakes up earlier. So he wakes up with all the kids and I'm still in bed with baby, and her and I will sleep, and I wake up when baby wakes up. And so that's how I'm able to get more sleep there. So again, like, this is why I don't have any judgments for parents that sleep train, because I don't know your situations. Do you have support? Like, your husband may have to be out the door at like 4 a.m., and you need to be up out the door too, getting ready with the kids. So I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm merely just explaining what our sleep looks like and why we chose this method. But it's not to say that's what you have to do, because this is just what works for the routines in our family. But yeah, to wrap it up, what gets me through those harder nights is realizing that my hugs, my kisses, my holding them can bring them all the comfort they need. Just like that. Right? What a superpower that is. And one day it's not. One day they're going to have their heart broken for the first time. And my hug and my kiss and me holding them in the middle of the night isn't going to mend it. But for now it does. All right, guys, I love hearing from you. Let me know what else you want to talk about during these Honest Hour chats. Drop it in the comments and I'll be sure to cover it. In the meantime, make sure you like, subscribe, and I think they say like hit that bell so you never miss a video. But in the meantime, I will talk to you later.